So good evening and welcome to the Fisher Theatre. My name's Kate Romer and I work for the Church's Conservation Trust, who look after over 350 Grade 1 listed churches, many of which have national importance in England, but now are not used for regular religious purposes. One of them, of course, is the Priory Church of St Mary, which lies here in the heart of Bungay. I mentioned St Mary's because it was here on the 4th of August 1577 that it was visited by none other than the infamous Black Shuck. In a moment, I'll be handing you over to Stuart Pearson Wright, who will be taking you through what I think, and I hope you think too, is a really exciting proposal for Bungay, which centres very much around the legend of that old black hound. Stuart's lived locally now for almost a decade and is considered to be one of the leading contemporary portrait artists working today. His work, not surprisingly, can be found in the public collections such as the National Portrait Gallery, the British Museum, Fitzwilliam Collection, Royal Art Collection and Government Art Collection, to name just a few. So without further ado, I will hand you over to Stuart Pearson Wright.
Hello. I'm just going to move this so I don't have a shadow. Is that okay? I was informed that I might have a shadow if I wasn't careful. Thank you. Thank you all for coming this evening. I don't know what's going on usually on a Tuesday evening in Bungay, but I'm grateful to you all for leaving all of that behind and coming here to a mysterious event where I hope to share with you two ideas, interlinked ideas, just to make that very clear. And these ideas are proposals, which I hope will offer a great opportunity for the people of Bungay and a chance to celebrate the town and its history and folklore, and to create opportunities for local businesses, but perhaps more importantly, an opportunity for the children and their parents of the town to feel a sense of ownership of the town and to feel inspired. Before I do that, sorry, that was a bit loud. I'm just going to show you some of my work for those of you who haven't come across me at all, so that you can have a sense of the sorts of things that I've made and make. So I'm going to move forward with a few slides. I'm going to sort of rush through them a little bit. You're welcome to look me up on Instagram or the interweb if you want to look further. But just to give you a flavour, that's a portrait I made many years ago. That one's set in Yarmouth. That's a long story. And thank you to my wife. That's the one on the right. That one's that one's set in Middlesbrough. That one's called Alas, Poor Yorick. I knew I was getting too old to play the Dane, so I thought I'd freeze myself in that guise forevermore. That's called Half Boy and Half Sister. You don't necessarily need to know the names. There's my wife again, and I in cowboy mode. That's called The Kid with the Bleeding Brain. It's based on a thing that happened to me when I was a boy. Yeah, that's called Tonaro di Scopello. This one is one I painted on a canvas I found in a junk shop. It felt like it needed some intervention. It needed a person, and it felt like it needed a narrative. And the narrative hasn't yet been written. Feel free to invent one. This one is both very pixelated, I'm afraid to say, but also on topic. Yeah, we all have those days, I suppose. That one's called Nausea. Hands up if you remember Ford Escort Mark IVs. Cortina, sorry. It is Cortina. Very well, that was just a test to see who was listening. Good, we've got some alert audience members. That's very... I planted him. That was a prearranged thing. I did know it was... what was it? An Escort? Cortina. Sorry. I'm nervous. I'm talking in front of lots of people. That's called The Wanderer. You may recognise that chap from Monty Python, Terry Jones. Good old Terry Jones, the late, great. That's me when I was a little boy with C-3PO feeling sad. That's the late, great John Hurt. And that's a tiny painting. It's about 3 inches tall or something like that. 15 centimetres to all you under 50s. I'm sure I saw at least one. That's Alan Rickman. That's Keira Knightley. That's Louis Theroux. That's J.K. Rowling. That's her again. That's a 3D piece, which doesn't translate well to photographs. Some of you may recognise that, Handsome Devil. This is what I did in lockdown. The painting's about that size. It's a group of old chaps called the Dilettanti Society, and it took 8 months to paint. That's Timothy Spall with some Holston pills. That's no product placement there, I hasten to add. Ian Bostridge, the singer, and Thomas Adès, the composer. And in fact, Kate made a reference to this portrait in her introduction. This is Rachel Levy, who survived the Holocaust. She was interned at Auschwitz, and I was recently commissioned by Prince Charles to paint this for the Royal Collection. And that is the introductory section complete. Which, well, that's very kind of you, thank you. So, some nomenclature. Dog, wolf, hound. I think we just need to be clear about what we're talking about when we move between those terms very fluidly. And I just want to point out, I'm very happy to move from the word dog to hound very quickly and even in the same sentence. And it's purely on the basis that they're actually the same species. And I know that may be a shock to some. Carl Linnaeus defined them as 2 separate species back in, let me check the date, I've got it here somewhere, 1758. But the dog was reclassified, the domestic dog was reclassified by the Smithsonian Institute in 1993 and became Canis lupus familiaris. It had just been Canis familiaris. That means they are the same breed, or species, I should say, sorry, part of the same genus, because they can and sometimes do interbreed when opportunity presents itself. So if I'm talking about wolves and dogs and you're thinking, hang on, isn't that a dog or isn't that a wolf? It's going to be okay. Just hold that thought. I don't want anyone to get upset this evening. Excited but not upset. Okay. So having got that, and one last point there, they actually share 99.6% of their DNA, so they're quite close. I'm going to leave that now, and I'm going to move on. And to the context, it says context on here, so I'm just reading that out. So tales of supernatural dogs and wolves and hounds have existed across time and across cultures. These liminal creatures, good word that, have reverberated with the malevolent and savage fringes of the human psyche. And there are many very early tales of tribespeople transforming themselves into wolves or dogs or hounds. One of the earliest of these transformation stories is from the Epic of Gilgamesh, which was written in ancient Babylonia in 2100 BC. That was a long time ago. We all know that. And one of the most famous early transformation stories is from the ancient Greeks and is written about by Ovid in Metamorphosis in 8 AD, I think. Yes. And that's the story of the king Lycaon, who did some really bad stuff. He fed one of his children to Zeus, as you do, in a stew, and somehow Zeus got wind of this, and he wasn't pleased, so he turned Lycaon into a wolf. And luckily there was someone there at that point to record it with an engraving tool. And we have an authentic record of that astonishing moment. Supernatural dogs. We have Cerberus from the ancient Greeks, guarding the gates to Hades, or hell to us, non-Greek ancient people, with 3 heads, fearsome fellow. We have Taingu, and forgive me if there are any Chinese people here for my terrible pronunciation, the Chinese myth of a black dog who eats the sun and the moon during an eclipse. And of course, we have our own Little Red Riding Hood, who we may think just comes from Charles Perrault in the 17th century, but some people believe that, in fact, this story is about 2,000 years old and has several variations across cultures. So I'm trying to make the case that supernatural hounds are everywhere, and they have been for a long, long time. That brings us to our own supernatural beast. Black Shuck, or black dog. We'll save that argument for later. Don't get upset, okay? Just hold it there. Hold that thought. Also known as the devil in such a likeness. So dark, ghostly apparitions who exist in the folklore of the British Isles have haunted the British psyche for centuries, often associated with the idea of bad luck for any who cross their path. Large, shaggy black hounds, often with glowing red or green eyes, or yellow. Sometimes very large, occasionally reported to be the size of a horse or an ox. That's big. Often seen in graveyards, crossroads, execution sites. Some say they smell of brimstone. That's pretty bad. In some legends, black dogs anthropomorphisize into human form or speak in a human tongue. Their howls are said to be of another world. Old Shuck is a popular name, possibly deriving from the Old English skooka, meaning demon, or from the word shucky, meaning shaggy or hairy. But there are many other names for this canine apparition, including Black Shuck, Shug, Wishthoons, Bargweast, Gear Trash, Padfoot, Shag, Trash, Striker, or Yethhound. Many of these names associated with a particular geographic region across Britain, from Yorkshire to Wales, Newgate Prison in London and Devon, and across to the Isle of Man, even. But we all here know, of course, that the most noteworthy apparition or manifestation of the black dog idea is our very own Old Shuck, or Black Shuck, or Black Dog. Just to include everyone, stay with me, of East Anglia. Sightings of which have continued to as recently as the 1950s, would you believe it? I'm sure there are even some people here who were alive in the 1950s. you may have even encountered this apparition. The most famous appearance of Black Shuck, however, was here in Bungay. I'm going to give you a little bit of the Reverend Abraham Fleming. Sunday, being the 4th of this August in the year of our Lord, 1577, to the amassing and singular astonishment of the present beholders and absent hearers at a certain town called Bungay, there fell from heaven an exceeding great and terrible tempest, not simply of rain, but also of lightning and thunder. There were assembled in the same season in the parish church of the said town of Bungay the people thereabouts inhabiting, who were witnesses of the strangeness, the rareness, the suddenness of the storm, consisting of rain violently falling, fearful dashes of lightning, and terrible cracks of thunder, which came with such unwonted force and power that, to the perceiving of the people, the church did quake and stagger, which struck into the hearts of those that were present with such a sore and sudden fear that they were in a manner robbed of their own wits. Immediately hereupon there appeared in a most horrible similitude and likeness to the congregation there presents a dog, as they might discern it, of a black colour, at the sight whereof, together with the fearful flashes of fire which were then seen, moved such admiration in the minds of the assembly that they thought doomsday was already come. This black dog, or the devil in such a likeness, running all along the body of the church with great swiftness and incredible haste, among the people passed between two persons, as they were kneeling and occupied in prayer, as it seemed. He wrung their necks of them both one instant clean back, and they were dead. Yes, dead. That bit wasn't there. Still continuing, and remaining in one and the self-same shape, passing by another man of the congregation in the church, gave him such a gripe on the back that therewithal he was presently drawn together and shrunk up, as it were like a piece of leather. Just picture that. Scorched in a hot fire, or as to the mouth of a purse or a bag, drawn together with a string. Just think about that. Albeit here was in so strange a taking, died not, but as it is thought is yet alive, with a little string. Which thing is marvellous in the eyes of men. Yeah. There are remaining in the stones of the church, and likewise in the church door, which are marvellously rented and tore, the marks, as it were, of his claws or talons. These things are not lightly with violence to be overpassed, but precisely and thoroughly to be considered. So, thank you for humouring that. Creative and literary responses to the legend of Black Shuck have been multifarious. From Led Zeppelin's song, Black Shuck, eyes that shine burning red, dreams of you all through my head, to Arthur Conan Doyle's The Hound of the Baskervilles, Dracula's manifestation as a black wolf in the eponymous novel, appearing also in Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, believe it or not, in The Hound by H.P. Lovecraft, Sirius Black, oh no, that's The Hound. There's Sirius Black from Harry Potter, of course. There's a song by Suffolk's very own The Darkness called Black Shuck. Martin Newell's epic poem, also called Black Shuck. And more recently, the comedian Stuart Lee, in collaboration with local musician Laura Cannell, made a song about Old Shuck. And yes, if you take a stroll through Bungay, there are black dog-themed weather vanes, running clubs, and antique shops. But the fact remains that Black Shuck has never been fully claimed and owned, never been given an ancestral home in any definitive, iconic, and totemic way. So, I want to take the legend of Black Shuck and claim and situate it so firmly in Bungay that every child in England will know the story and know where it happened. Bungay is sitting on a proverbial gold mine from which we have only skimmed the surface of opportunity. A folklore tale of Gothic proportions, second to none, about a devilish and murderous supernatural hound. Stories don't come better than that. We need to sing it from the rafters, claim it as our own, and celebrate it. And how do we do this? I told you that I have two ideas. This is the first. Just to make that clear. August the 4th, 2023 marks the 446th anniversary of the strange and terrible wonder. I propose that on that day we unveil a larger than life-size bronze sculpture of Shuck, the black dog, in all his fiery splendour, eyes made of glowing red glass, glowering across the town, bringing astonished visitors from as far afield as Beccles, Halston, possibly on a good day even from Norwich. I propose, after much research and development, and having made many drawings and models, to make this sculpture myself in clay. Those are sketches. That's me making a sculpture in clay. You can tell that. I would then cast it in wax, and then in a Suffolk foundry to render it in bronze. This is a wax sculpture being turned into a mould, and that's molten bronze. You can tell that as well. These are clever people in a foundry doing things. Moving through the slides. That shouldn't be there. I apologise. That's holding up the narrative. It's okay. So once I've created this bronze sculpture and patinated it, I'd like to stick it on a plinth in a prominent position in Bungay. And I'm thinking either the roundabout outside Whiteman's, or if that doesn't work for any reason, potentially somewhere in Buttercross. But that's just an idea at this stage. But the key thing is that the plinth itself would have a story, a ballad composed by Bungay's bard, our very own Luke Wright, who's no relation, incidentally. It's not nepotism. So that everyone will know the story, it will be there, it will be written, it will be manifest as a large piece of art for all to see. And that way Shuck may never be forgotten. And in the past, creating a public work of art meant imposing on a place a sculpture of a military leader or a slave owner or an industrialist or some other great patriarch. I have no intention of imposing anything on the people or the town of Bungay. And that's why we're here this evening, for me to share this idea with you, to see what you think. And if the people of Bungay want this work of art for their town, then I will make it. And what's more, I won't take a fee for building it to keep the cost down, because these things are pricey. But alongside the process of making the sculpture itself, there will be fantastic opportunities for education. So it's my ambition that every child in Bungay and the surrounding area will have the opportunity to either visit my studio and see the piece being sculpted, or else visit the foundry to see the process of the piece being cast in bronze. I would love each child to have an opportunity to be involved in a workshop as well and have a chance to make something in clay or have a go at printmaking. Using artistic expression as a means of connecting to the story, both of Shuck and of the sculpture itself. These workshops could, of course, be extended to other groups, adults with learning difficulties or whatever. That's an open idea. And I would hope that as a result of this, each and every young person in the area would view the sculpture and story with a feeling of connection and ownership and empowerment. And if in 2085 some very elderly person sat down in the town and said to some very, very young person, you know, I remember when this was made and I was here. And actually, I went to the artist's studio. And we had a go at making something in clay, and I was inspired by that in some way. Then I would feel that my job is done. That's what this is about for me. It's the opportunity to pass something down, to give something to everyone in the town, but I guess particularly to the younger generation who've got to grow up here, you know, and make sense of how they fit into this town. And those are just some slides from a recent printmaking workshop I ran in my studio for my own children and a friend's children. And in fact, these are two dry point prints which my 10-year-old son, who's in the audience, made, and I'm really impressed with those. I don't know about you, but I think they're amazing. And he made that as well. That's the claw marks in the door. Okay, that's the first idea. Big sculpture. You all got that? Yeah, great. That brings me on to the second idea. Now, there have been many disparate attempts to create a buzz in Bungay. Beautiful alliteration there. Markets, fun runs, and so on. And whilst these have all brought great things to the town in different ways, they have perhaps suffered from a lack of galvanising and coalescing focus and purpose. We need some joined-up thinking. The unveiling of a new work of public art in Bungay, which tells an ancient story set within the town during the Suffolk summer, gives us an unparalleled opportunity to create one hell of a party. The opportunity to create an annual Bungay Black Shuck Festival / Bungay Black Dog Festival. Stay with me. Picture it. A curated literary festival at the Fisher, here, with historians, writers, poets and folklorists invited to speak, themed panel discussions, writing competitions, storytelling around the fire. East Anglia is full of incredible stories of the bizarre and the supernatural. A music festival. Bungay is full of incredibly talented musicians. We heard this evening Will Ferguson. Wasn't he great? But there are other Wills in this town, and there are other musicians. One of them has even already composed Black Shuck the opera. It's already been made. This is waiting to happen. We can have folk music. We can have rock music. We can have experimental music. We can even have classical music. And you may not even know this, but someone has already made in 2020 a short film, an animated film with puppets about Black Shuck. And it's the version of Black Shuck with one big eye. We could have a film festival, only if I'm allowed to curate the werewolf movies. There could be an annual art exhibition with prizes for the best Black Shuck interpretation. A fancy dress ball, a pageant, a masquerade, people dressed as Shuck or the 1577 parishioners, bless their little hearts. Bringing an effigy of Shuck through the town to burn on Falcon Meadow. Don't panic, you can do that without digging a hole. It's going to be okay. There are ways of doing it. Or we could, Falcon Meadow. It's fine. It's not a problem. I was thinking of Castle Meadow. Sorry, ignore me. So many spaces to hear music and stories. Where was I? We could have coracle racing. Let's find that slide. Hang on. We've got to have this guy. And him. And him. You get the idea. Coracle racing. Who knows what a coracle is? That's a coracle. And you build it yourself in your workshop. You get together with your friends. You get out some old nails. You get some bits of ash, or you get some hazel. You have a lot of fun. And then you all get in the river. You get funny costumes on. You raise money for charity. Everyone laughs. You can have dwal flonking, East Anglia's finest sport. You could have molly dancing. Apologies to any members of Old Glory who are here, that isn't them. We can have jousting. Of course. You got Falcon Meadow. Look at the length of it. It's perfect. It was made. They must have done jousting there. It must have happened. They must have been doing it in 1577. They must have. And of course, 1577 is the reign of Elizabeth, so you can have Elizabethan themed events as well thrown in there. Shakespeare was around there. You can have Shakespeare plays. Do what you want with it. It's a great period in time to take as a starting point for brainstorming. You can eat local cheese. You can drink local beer. And there's some of those Elizabethans I mentioned earlier. And there's some more of them. You'd have to get these guys along, some reenactment, some sword fighting. It's all good fun. Another idea, we could organise a sponsored cycle ride or run or walk or limp following the route of Shuck from Bungay to Blythburgh. But we'd do it in reverse. We'd start everyone at Blythburgh and we'd bring them into Bungay. We'd rewrite the rules. We'd say, let's do it this way, but let's use that route. Let's find that route across the countryside and bring people across in their funny costumes, travelling however they want to travel in their own way. And they'd get to Bungay, and that would mark the start of the festival. Everyone would arrive in a fanfare. You can imagine them all coming down the streets. Sorry, I've gone off piece, don't know where I am in my notes. So, I want to see every potter in Bungay making shuck sculptures, assuming they want to. Every baker baking black bread. Everyone who has something to make or something to say, whatever that is, having the opportunity to get involved in their own way and do their thing and make it part of this big jamboree. I want everyone to be able to interpret the legend on their own terms. The Waveney Valley is full to the brim with extraordinary people. They all wash down here from Diss. They all just, and they end up here. And we are very lucky that two of these extraordinary people are here this evening. In fact, I can see many of them this evening. But two of them are going to talk to you for a little bit. First of all, I'm sure that you are all familiar with Fen Farm Dairy, an incredible local producer who have won so many prizes for their cheese that they are running out of wall space to hang them all and have to create the pretense that they're building more cheese buildings, when in fact it's just space to hang all their awards. They win at least 2 a week. I know we all feel very, very proud of the Crickmores and everything that they've done for this town. And I have a very exciting announcement to make, which is that Johnny and Dulcie Crickmore have pledged already, before this idea has even begun, before you were even here this evening, that Fen Farm Dairy is going to contribute a quarter, that's 25% of the cost of constructing the bronze, before we even get moving, before we have our argument over whether it's shuck or dog, or before you even finish your Prosecco, they've come forward and said, we're going to chip in a quarter of the cost of building this sculpture. So I would like to invite to the stage Johnny Crickmore.
Hello everyone, I'm Johnny from Fen Farm Dairy, one of the people responsible for this cheese, I just wanted to tell you, well, just say a few things about why I think this idea is good. And I'll start off by just saying a little bit of my background, or the story of why we make this cheese. And that's, we've been a dairy farm for a long time, just on the Flixton side of Bungay. And it was kind of got to a point through sort of desperation and just being fed up with the dairy industry that we tried something different. And we've originally experimented by putting a little garden shed near our farm, just painted it like a cow and stuck some bottles of milk in it. And to our surprise, we started selling these bottles. On day one, we sold 30 litres of milk. All 30 litres went. The next day, we put 35, and they all went. And on it went for several weeks, and people started talking about our little shed. And it kind of, at that point, I just felt, actually, I get it now, like why I'm a farmer. I've all of this getting up early in the morning, working Christmas Day, feeding cows, getting milk, putting it in a tank, and off it goes down the road to London and is processed with all the other milk, and not really having any control over that. And all of a sudden, just selling these few bottles of milk, it sort of it just woke me up, and I just the enjoyment of just selling a few bottles of milk, despite actually putting about 6,000 litres in a tank, that was more of a reason for me to get up in the morning. And that the little shed then inspired us to, like, what else can we do with our milk? And we thought, other ways to use milk. We're not going to always we're not going to be able to sell all of our milk from our little shed. So we looked into cheese making, and we went researching. I simply tapped in on Google UK's best cheesemakers and went and visited all those people. And from visiting the cheesemakers, we started to understand good cheese to bad cheese, different styles, where it was sold, where all the good stuff went. And once we started to understand this, we realised that there was a massive gap in the market, which was an unpasteurised brie in the UK. Nobody was making that cheese. And so we set our goal was we were going to make a brie as good as the French. And how were we going to do this? Well, we needed to find a French cheesemaker. So we found a French cheesemaker through different people in the UK who knew connections in France. And from meeting this guy, he then said, I will work with you. Sorry, I was going to try a French accent, but I'm terrible. I will work with you, but you must make good cheese, so I'm not coming over to work with you. And I said, yeah, I do. I want to make really good cheese. And he said, well, what is your breed of cow? And I said, it's a Holstein, like this one up here. He said, it is not going to work. He said, what you need is a French cow, a Montbéliard or a Normandy cow. So I said, okay, well, I'm willing to do it. And we went to France and found these Montbéliard cows. We found a French cattle dealer down in the Jura region of France. We went travelling all these beautiful mountains and found these cows with bells, brought them back to the UK, 2 lorry load, 72 animals. And we got the French cheesemaker to come over. And in May 2013, we made our first cheese, Baron Bigod, with the guy Ivan, the French cheesemaker, with our Montbéliard cows from France. And through all the connections we had from visiting these cheesemakers and these cheese shops, they all wanted to start selling our cheese, didn't they? Because they knew, they already saw a story, what was happening, and they wanted to be part of it. And despite our cheese being pretty rubbish to begin with, people bought it. And what I'm getting at here is why I'm saying this is because it's a story. And when I actually started saying this, what I'm telling you now, to people who are interested in our cheese, so we got local journalists, news, and then that went more to national, and international. We started getting stories, regular stories in national newspapers about our cheese. And I didn't realise 10 years ago that I was creating a story. When you think about all of the towns and villages around the UK which have got something special, why do all of those great villages, towns in different, like the more touristy areas, Cornwall, Devon, the Lake District, the Peak District, they've got towns which have something, a story about the town, an object, a thing, a statue, a building, and it's iconic. It's the thing which people come to that area. Now you imagine you've just got this really big, scary, angry black dog, Shuck, there in Bungay, and the scarier the better, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Johnny. And now I'm sure you all know who Luke Wright is. He has been mentioned a few times. I'm now going to bring him up to the stage, so do please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Stuart. I'm aware that... What's that? There we go. That's good. I'm aware it's getting quite late, so I'll try and keep this brief. Unlike Johnny, I can't claim to be a Bungay native. I also can't claim to get up early in the morning and work Christmas Day. I am, after all, a poet. It's not in the job description. But I am so proud to come from this town. I chose to move here, and I've loved it. And I travel all over the country, all over the world, performing. I always tell people where I live when I'm on stage. It's always part of my act. I always talk a little bit about Bungay. I'm really proud to be from here. I'm really proud of the community we've got here. I love the businesses and the shops and the restaurants. It's beautiful, but it's not that beautiful in that annoying kind of chocolate boxy kind of way. It's a great, I feel very, very, very proud. And I've been performing poetry on stage for 23 years. I've been to every single arts festival, literary festival you can name. And the ones I always loved the most were things like the Aldborough Poetry Festival or the Ledbury Poetry Festival, or there's a festival I go to in Wales called the Larne Weekend. It's in this little town called Larne, where Dylan Thomas spent the last 4 years of his life, and boy, have they traded off it ever since. And these festivals are unique because they are in little out-the-way places. You can't have a big festival in a tiny little place like Aldborough. Well, you can actually. They're the best places to have festivals because people come in and they can't then escape to the big city to do anything else. So they're there, they're focused, and they focus in on the festival. And they're very, very magical things. And I've long thought Bungay could do that. It really could do that. But the thought of doing something like that on my own was always overwhelming. So I thought I'd just forget about that idea. And then Stuart came with this idea, and so I'm 100% on board. I would very much like to write the ballad of the Black Shuck to go on the plinth. Whether we could fit a whole ballad, a satisfying ballad on a plinth, I don't know, or whether we just do a more lyrical version to put there. But certainly a longer version would exist. And I agree with Johnny, it should be utterly terrifying. You might think poetry can't be terrifying. I'm going to finish on a poem to show you that it can be terrifying. And I hope it shows in some way my credentials to write this piece. This is my own retelling of an old English folk tale, and it concerns a hunter called Gelon Graham and his lover, who in my version of the story is called Lily Thistle. And I'll finish on this. It's quite a dark story, and I don't want to cast a pall on the evening, but black dogs are scary things. So here we go. This is the ballad of Lily Thistle. This tale's been told 1,000 times in 1,000 different ways. It comes from camps and woodland glades and the age of mystery plays, and it's held its own by smoky hearths on piss-wet bitter days. Its chilling force persisted through a century of Georges. It chilled the blood of decent folk in workhouses and forges, and spurred the reptile pulses of delinquents and marauders until some grand Victorian confined it to the page, preserved in inky permanence until the pixel age, when a gorgeous gobshite googled it and brought it to the stage. And so to Lily Thistle then, her flaming ropes of hair arrest us through the centuries. Look, see her sitting there. She glows in third trimester grace. Make no mistake, she's fair. As maids and stories often are, for now I'll play that game. A hawthorn blooms behind her to provide the perfect frame as Lil awaits the man she loves, the hunter, Gelon Graham. And look, what's that? A hare-eyed youth approaches our tableau. Bow-legged with tufts of straw-like hair and cheeks like pastry dough. He stands in pants in front of her. Is this sweet Lily's beau? Bent over, clutching at his knees with lips like bacon rind. No, Lily's altruistic, sure, but ultimately not blind. And she can see he's nervous, so she smiles at him so kind that all his nerves blow off like blossom in the April breeze. He straightens up, he mops his brow, he gives a little wheeze, then he blurts to her his message with a newly garnered ease. I bring thee word from Gelon Green. He begs for your forgiveness. He's still in Silverwood where he's been caught up on some business, and hopes that you might join him there. That ain't far to walk, miss. She smiles and nods, extends a hand. He helps her to her feet and blushes as she plants a kiss upon his doughy cheek. He touches it as if to say, I shan't wash for a week. So Lily wanders Silverwood beneath the canopy of birch and strokes her baby bump in childlike reverie. Her every breath is Gelon Graham. She knows where he will be. Their place. The place they always met in the heart of Silverwood, where last September in the dusk he'd lowered her riding hood and laid her on the mossy earth when everything was good. She conjures him, his pine green eyes, the quiet way he spoke. His wild hair and sinewed muscles scared the village folk, but Lily saw a different man in his scent of earth and smoke. And she sees him by the ancient oak, a shovel in his hand, The pistons of his shoulders cutting deep into the land, he thrusts and grunts and thrusts again. He slices roots like sand. And when he sees her, Jelon stops and he climbs free of the pit. He beckons her to join him, so she goes to stand by it. He throws his shovel on the ground and he takes her in his grip. "My brave," she says, as moonlight casts a mist of silver grey. "My pa will not allow our match, and so I've run away. I make a vow tonight to love you till my dying day." And she waits to hear the vow return, but Jelon's face is clay. He just looks and looks till Lily says, "Why dig you here, my brave?" Then Jelon's face cracks in a grin. "My love, this is your grave." He pushes her, she stumbles back, he screams, she screams, he pulls a knife, he jumps into the pit and says, "I will not have a wife." He slices, gouges, thrusts and stabs, he tears away her life. And when he stops and straightens up to tower lupine-like above the mess of flesh, her corpse still wails for the night. He grips his knife in terror when a shard of silver light reveals to him the child. Somehow unharmed and lying there amid the wreckage of her mother, cradled in the splintered ribs. He drops his knife and stoops to lift her from the bloody crib. Then he looks down at his daughter, her eyes as green as pine, and marvels that this thing survived. "This child is truly mine," he says in awe, and straps her to his bloody chest to climb. And when he's piled the sodden earth upon the broken bones, he walks his daughter through the moonlight to his sister's home. And he tells her not to question Rye, but raise her as her own. She does. They call the daughter May, the image of her father, a mane of matted tar-black hair and pine-green eyes that harbour a willful otherworldliness. And maybe something darker. And once a week her father's scent of earth and smoke would come. He'd take her in a silver wood, tell tales like this one where violence and brute strength rule. He raised her to be strong. And look, that's them. She's 16 now, as deadly as the plague, a sniper with her hunting bow, a butcher with her blade. They dump their spoils upon the ground and they rest now in a glade, but something feels strange to me. This place, it seems so sad. I've never seen this glade before, but how can that be there? He sheathes his knife and sighs so deep to tell her would be mad, but when he looks across at her, as strong as any man with pine-green eyes and tar-black hair, he thinks she'll understand, she's mine, he thinks. He swallows hard. It all began. And so his awful secret spills, that sweet September tryst, the way that she had come to him beneath the silver's mist, his frenzy with a hunting knife, the daughter who had lived. Her maid sits there transfixed as Jelen conjures with such zest this image of her mother and the details of her death, a grim ablution of his soul that takes away her breath. He ends by pointing at the earth. "Oh, your mother's buried there." No answer comes. When he looks, a raging sunlight flares. He shields his eyes, but still he sees those flaming ropes of hair as Lily towers over him, alive now in her daughter, with vengeance in the pine-green eyes and all the hate he had taught her. She howls in grief, her blade unsheathed, and puts him to the slaughter, slices, gouges, thrusts and stabs till death is overdue, then drags him back to Lily's town so all will know the truth. You will not rest here, Jelon Graham. You will not rest here, Jelon Graham. You will not rest where Lily rests. This place is far too good for you. Thank you. So in conclusion, I would love to have read a Black Shuck poem to you, but I have not written it yet, but I will, and I promise it will be everything people want it to be. Of course it won't be, because that's not how art works, but hopefully people will like it. Anyway, I shall hand you back to Stuart now.
Thank you very much, Luke, and also thank you, Johnny. I've just one more thing to say, and that is that the last few years have been pretty diabolical, really, for many people, let's face it. We've had one bad thing happening after another, I feel. I mean, it started in 2016 when David Bowie died, I felt. Then we had some kind of referendum that had some, let's say, some polarising effects on the population of the country. And then there was COVID. We've had lockdown. We've now got the invasion of Ukraine. Things feel like they are going to the dogs, if you forgive the pun. And I, for one, am really sick of hearing bad news and feeling as though I'm just crawling to get back to the baseline of something that feels okay. My feeling about this is there's one of two things really that we can do, one of two approaches to this slew of bad things going on in the world. I think we can either sit and mope about things and wait for our leaders to make things better for us. I'm not going to say too much about that, but and also for the unscrupulous dictators in the world to get a grip on reality. We can just wait for that. Or I feel that we can choose to take matters into our own hands as a community, and we can build something new, make something, create. Let's come together as a town, as a community, and harness the creative energy here. And let's build and move forwards. Let's stop looking at the past and thinking about bad things that have happened. Let's make something new. Let's create moments of fun and laughter. Do you remember that stuff? That will live in the memories of our children for decades. Let's create traditions. You can create a tradition. You can begin something and make it, and then it will happen again and again. Set new precedents. Let's create stories and songs that leave a legacy for future generations. Let's celebrate being alive in this beautiful place with its extraordinary stories. Thank you very much.
Very much, Stuart. I'm sure there's people with a lot of questions. August 2023, which is over a year away, which seems a long time, but it's not. No. So what next? Because if we're going to make it happen, lots of things have got to happen.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, that's a very good question. And, well, the first thing really is to get a sense of what the people of the town want, hence the purpose of this evening. And I'm hoping that you will all, whoever wants to, will give some feedback. It would be great to hear your feedback and your questions. You're going to have a chance in a second to do that. And as Kate said, if you feel shy, you don't want to shout something out, there is a box there. And also, there's a piece of paper where you can add your contact details if you'd like to be kept in touch about the developments with this idea. So in terms of what's next, we have to have lots of conversations with the town council and lots of other interested parties and see what happens. We'll take it from there and try and get the ball rolling. We'll also have to raise finance. And that's another thing to think about. There are lots and lots of things to think about, but I think I will stop there and invite people to ask or give their thoughts.
I found a mic.
Over to you,
yeah.
people.
We've got a mic. Has anyone got anything they'd like to ask?
There's a gentleman over there.
Thank you. I wonder if you can tell us what sort of size you're planning for the Black Dog Shuck? Or...
That's a very good question. Well, it's I don't know why that happened. Sorry. It's got to be at least life size, in my opinion, for it to have any sort of impact. And well, how big was Black Shuck or Black Dog? That's a moot point. We don't know. But lots of accounts, not specifically the one by Abraham Fleming, describe it as a large dog, and some even describe black dogs as big as an ox. So, how long's a piece of string? I don't know. It's a good question. I would have to be able to sculpt it in clay on a steel armature, and that's no easy thing to do. So, I don't know. The thing is, of course, this is just an idea. In order to develop this idea, I have to spend many months making dozens of drawings and exploring the look of this thing. I mean, thank you. Yes, it was in this one here was in fact a lurcher. That's a very good point. Crossed with a wolfhound. Yeah. But there will be many more drawings. This is just a quick sketch because I needed something to stick on the front of the talk. But I don't know how big it will be, but it will be of a reasonable size, bigger than a person, I would say.
3,000 people.
Maybe not 3,000 people. I think that might ask rather a lot of Fen Farm Dairy to contribute a quarter to the cost. If it's, but thank you for the thought. Who else would like to say something?
I'll say something.
Yeah.
Possibly don't need a mic.
Do you think you can project? Are you okay with that? Here's a mic anyway.
Okay. And then I don't have to expose myself too much. When you were talking, Stuart, about the idea of the festival and pageant and the parade and the procession and all those ideas, and all the potential to include the community there, particularly young people, because that's where I work mostly in the town. And you talked about telling stories, which is theatre, and we're in a theatre. And so I just wanted to say that you know, working with the people I do, young people and community theatre makers, we would just be so excited to be involved in all sorts of ways.
Brilliant.
With a project like this and an annual event. You know, we've talked about it, I think. You know, we've talked about being... And there used to be, you know, in the town when I first moved here, gosh, like 25 years ago, there used to be quite an impressive sort of buzz about what was then, I think, it was called the Bungay... Yeah, that was it, wasn't it? There was all sorts of things going on.
So
you know, the town has the energy for it. You know, there's so much in that, and we'd love to bring the young people in, telling stories, and sort of add the sort of theatrical sort of side of things. So yeah, we're in.
Thank you. I think that's a really important point, and I really want to emphasise. Thank you, Darren. I really want to emphasise the importance of stories. If I hadn't made that really, really clear, stories are really, really central to this whole project, or two projects, however you perceive it. Who else would like to? Yeah, there's a gentleman there.
Thank you. Yes, I think it's an excellent idea. I'm really very impressed, and there's lots of good ideas. We do need to promote Bungay as best we can through what is best about Bungay, and the legend of the Black Dog of Bungay is a wonderful story, and it emphasised the dog rather than Shuck. Because the football team, for instance, have always been known throughout their history as the Black Dogs. It wouldn't ring the same as they've called the Black Shucks. The Bungay Black Dog Running Club, not the Black Shuck Running Club. Specifically for Bungay, it does need to be the Black Dog, and if you're going to have an explanation on the plinth, then you can talk about Shuck in that. But I think from Bungay's point of view, it's always been known as the Black Dog of Bungay. And if it goes up as Black Shuck, it won't have quite the same ring as far as Bungay's concerned. That's my view. But the idea is absolutely brilliant.
Thank you very much.
So do go for it. And,
Thank you, sir.
Anything I can do to help, I will.
Thank you. Well, I would like to just respond to that one point, actually, which is that what I think would be fantastic at the first inaugural festival would be to have a panel discussion here with folklorists and historians and whoever else has an opinion about whether it's shuck or dog, here discussing this. And we can have this subject out, because obviously there are different opinions on the subject, and well, that's wonderful. Of course there are. There are manifestations of this beast all over the country, and they've all got different names. But that's fine. That's great. Let's have a great big discussion about it. As long as no one gets upset, that's all. That's all I ask for. Please don't get upset, anyone. Yeah. Next question, please, or comment. There was this handsome gentleman at the front. I'm sorry, I've got the lights in my eyes. I apologise.
As long as it's my light. I've only just arrived in Bungay, and a couple of times I've been down before. And one of the things I've noticed is the traffic is crazy. Absolutely crazy. You can't get across streets. So I thought, if you have a really long story, I'm a storyteller, and I hear that this is the heart of Bungay here right now. If you had a story from Luke that was too long for a plinth, then wrap it right around the circle, and maybe by the time kids have gone around trying to follow the story, all the traffic will have to stop. Yeah? Let's stop the traffic.
That's a great point. On a serious note, I'm sure there are ways of including a whole ballad. In fact, my wife, who's in the audience, had one idea about that, and she may wish to tell us about that, but I don't know if she's feeling shy or whether she got bored and went home. I know she is here. That's okay. But this gentleman here was going to say something.
No, I was just thinking the debate about shuck or dog. I'm never sure about that. What I do know is in my hand, I have here one of about 10 full scores, which 26 years ago, I wrote an opera. It's called Black Dog. The Black Dog is what I called it, and in the opera, which is set obviously in Bungay, it follows the story that we heard at the beginning. The interesting thing is about the whole provenance of this is that when Stuart mentioned to me that there was going to be plans for a festival, which is a great idea, by the way, is that I'd recently just gone to an old garage where I'd stored things and found a whole pile of these in the bottom of a tea chest which were going mouldy. I didn't think they'd ever be performed again, and I wasn't sure whether I could be really bothered to get it out of the box, to be honest. It stank pretty badly, nearly as badly as probably the breath of Black Dog himself. Anyway, this was a community project. I'm just bringing it to your attention because it sort of fits in quite well with what's happened here this evening. And this was done as a community project at the time. I think actually it was probably 97 that it was put on, and all the people who were in it were from Bungay or the surrounding area. And we put it on the Norwich Festival, and we performed it because the Norwich Festival had a sort of satellite performing area, which was Blytheborough Church. We put it on in Blytheborough Church as well. So it's ready to go if anyone's interested. It is a community project, involves probably, well, performers, as many as you like, but it takes place inside and outside, and I'd be happy to not have to write it all out again by hand, which is what I did in the original days, but to actually computerise it, and it's a bit of a laugh really as well, but also tells the story of our town. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Would anyone else like to say anything? Yep, there's someone over there.
Is there lots of schools could
Contribute to what, sorry?
The young musicians of our schools
Oh, yeah.
come and contribute each year and within the festival.
Definitely.
So that would be a good idea. Another idea, which might be a bit offbeat, but when the cathedral in Bury St Edmunds wanted to raise money to do whatever they wanted to do with the money, they actually designed or got someone to design a piece of the cathedral in Lego. Okay? Don't laugh. Every piece of Lego, they charged somebody £1. And every time I go to Bury St Edmunds with the children, we go and we pay £1 and we put our bit of Lego on and it's all orchestrated by somebody. So it's just a thought. We'd have a beautiful bronze one, but we could also have a Lego one that's in the main church, and if it's sort of fancy enough and big enough and all the rest of it, then we could have all contributed by putting a piece of Lego into it and paying £1. Just an idea.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you, Gilly. Actually, one... I'm sure we can find enough Lego.
Look at both, wouldn't they?
We could send some people over to Denmark. On that note, what I feel is really, really central to this project is the idea that there are means developed of creating and generating funds which are available specifically to the town, to the buildings of the town. And someone touched on that earlier, I think it was Johnny, this idea that, you know, that the buildings along the main streets of the town, a lot of them do need a bit of TLC. And I hope that we could generate funds to help smarten the town up a bit so it looks beautiful, you know, so that when all these thousands of people come up the road from Southwold wondering what on earth is going on in Bungay, and they get here and they're wondering where they can get their flat whites and so on, you know, they'll look around them and they'll marvel at what a beautiful town it is. Anyway. Next, would anyone else like to say anything? Yes, a lady over here.
I absolutely love your ideas, but I'm just having a little shiver at the thought of thousands and thousands of people coming to Bungay, which is a beautiful, quiet town. And would it change the character? How can we do all of this without changing the character of the town and becoming another Southwold, but I don't want to say another Southwold because I love Southwold, but I love it to visit, not to live. And it's how as community members and people who live in Bungay, how can we maintain that character and the spirit of Bungay while absolutely doing these fantastic projects, which I fully agree with. So that's my sort of question to you.
I think that's a very, very important point. Thank you very much for saying that. And, well, you know, obviously it's a concern. You have lots of people coming in. That is going to have an effect on the town. But I think the point of the festival is it lasts a couple of days, it lasts for a weekend. So you're going to obviously have a concentration of people coming. And to be honest, it's going to take a while to build the notoriety of this event, this annual event. That would take time to establish, and I think the town would adjust to that, and you would then perhaps have more of a sort of trickle of visitors throughout the rest of the year. Johnny, did you want to respond to that point as well?
I was just going to say you've got to, with old market towns like Bungay and many other around the areas, that you have to be careful that we don't lose our town, because you know the reality is we have got a lot of shops which have to let on it right now. That is the reality. So we do, you know, having thousands of people come in Bungay, like being realistic, that's a tall ask to get that. We're not going to be Southwold because we're not near the beach and we haven't got Adnams and things like that. But we've got to, you know, I've been able to see a lot of different places around the UK in the last 10 years of travelling and, you know, visiting places where we sell our products, and you can see towns which are thriving and they've got a life in them, and then you can see ones what are dying, and we've got to be careful that we don't let that happen to our town. You know, so we've got to keep the pulse going. We've got to keep the blood moving in our town, because, you know, when you look, it doesn't take much when you look around you and you see, you know, the towns what are going well and the ones what are not, the ones what are dying. And it is a reality. Towns do die. The hearts of towns die. And, you know, we're not there yet by a long shot. We've got some amazing things in our town, but we do need to keep the blood flowing. And I think we could be the jewel in the North Suffolk crown. Bungay could be. I think when you look at, you know, just down the road, look at Beccles. It's doing brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I go there and I think, wow, this place is like going places. It's got business coming into it, you know, all of these big names. But we're not Beccles, we're Bungay, and Bungay's quirky. It's different. It's a bit more arty, maybe. And we, you know, we're a special little town, but let's make the most of what we are. You know, look at the things what we're good at now, and, you know, let's just increase those. It's a special little place, and I think we're a long way off from getting thousands of people come in our town, but I think we've got to keep the blood flowing.
Thanks, Johnny. Bungay will never be Southwold. There's someone else at the back.
Hi, I think one of the really important things that keeps Bungay a real place and a live place is having Clays as a big employer. And I think it would be really great, as you're talking about stories, to engage the people of Clays and the workforce.
Definitely.
And somehow bring that into the project.
Definitely. Yeah, we should be celebrating the fact that books are made here. This Bungay is where books are made, and Bungay and books, you know, those are words that go together well. Definitely. Thank you, Katie. There's no one here from Clays this evening, is there?
Yeah, we need to make it more inclusive, Stuart.
I did put posters all around the town.
I know.
Someone kept pulling them down.
How do we appeal to everybody?
Well, let's bring them in here. People go and speak to people from Clays. Yeah, definitely. Yes.
I'm thinking of the sighting of any plinth and statue, any dog. People will, if they come, they will want to have, presumably, photographs taken of themselves in front of it.
Yes.
They will want to stand round and read the story. If we do get more than one or two people, we will need to consider seriously where we actually cite the monument.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm glad you brought that up, because I mean, I mentioned two possible spaces. Personally, I think Buttercross wouldn't work very well, because Buttercross is there and also there's a market. But I think that around that area is a sort of natural heart of the town, in a sense, probably because Buttercross is there, but also because the streets converge at that point. The little roundabout that I talked about opposite Whiteman's is quite small. And I was doing some research on Google Earth, and there are two car parking spaces there. And my very, very controversial view was that perhaps you could remove those two parking spaces, and you could extend that roundabout and make it considerably larger. You've got to, I didn't actually measure the distance of the road there, but if you just had one lane's worth of road, I did a little sketch with a dodgy mouse pad. The red line denotes the current size of the roundabout, and the you can see I'm not used to this kind of design work. I paint pictures, and make sculptures. And the white line denotes where you could move and there's another shot there. You know, if you left a space for a car to turn round, then you wouldn't upset people about not being able to go around the roundabout. And you could create quite a large space with a sculpture, and I think you'd have enough space for a seat or a couple of benches or something. somewhere where people could go and sit, and it would be very closely situated to Buttercross. There's another view from a different angle, and there's a final view from Google Earth, and you can see there's even a car there, just next to the red bit, the little red thingy, which shows that there's ample space for a car to go around there and have a big roundabout with a sculpture on it that hopefully won't frighten the children too much. So I believe it would be possible, but that's obviously a big set of conversations to be had. So thank you for bringing that up. And there's a gentleman in a very attractive scarf at the back here. Sorry. There's a.
He was ready to go.
Yep, he's ready to. There's a gentleman ready to go at the back.
Good to go. Just a couple of observations, really. Although I love the idea of having a massive sculpture in Bungay, I'm interested in the concept of it being a bit more than just a tourist attraction. Because one of the things that you said very early on was about ownership of this story.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very aware that, I mean, in this room and in the town, there are a large number of creatives of one kind or another, whether they're painters or musicians or all sorts of things. And our task, no doubt, in addition, in order to support such an idea, would seem to be to try and find ways to make this story, which is ultimately quite a simple story, contemporary, relevant, so that we can work with it.
Yeah.
I haven't a conclusion to that.
No.
But it seems to me that that's the challenge that would then take it beyond something which is, I'm not going to say a cynical ploy, but a ploy to get people into the town to visit. It needs to be more than that. And I guess, ownership of the story will come when it's relevant to people.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
Yeah, I mean, of course, everyone would perceive an idea like this from their own point of view, but speaking personally, it's not, I mean, although we've talked about it attracting visitors, from my point of view, it isn't about that. That's not the heart of it. I think the crucial issue is that it's about the people of the town claiming the story, as simple as that. And whether or not it needs to, I don't know if you were talking about modernising the story or making it feel relevant. It's a folklore story. It's relevant in as far as it's purported to have happened here, and yet it's a supernatural story. And we all feel differently about supernatural stories, but it's just the fact that it exists, and it exists in this town, that's extraordinary. And when I talk about ownership, this is why I kept talking about the educational opportunities. It's about, you see, the problem with a lot of public art is it sort of just happens and it just appears in a place, and people haven't really got any connection to it sometimes. And I think that is a problem. But the point is, I really want to involve people in the process of making this. I want to give anyone who's really interested the opportunity to see it happening, and in a sense to be part of it. So that's why I'm talking about ownership. Thank you for the thought, and now the gentleman with the beautiful scarf.
Hi.
Hi.
My name's Francis, and
Hi, Francis.
It's amazing if you were to raise your huge shuck on the roundabout, but as a possible alternative, that were not possible. Are you aware that there's a new community garden initiative up on Annis Hill, which is currently under construction? And
No.
it's the old playing field, I believe, behind one of the secondary schools that
Oh yes,
many
I have
people
heard of
went
this.
to.
I have heard of this.
And that is a new community garden for the future of Bungay. So if it weren't possible to put Black Shark on or around the roundabout, you could possibly create, something to match the Angel of the North on this kind of 3-4 acre site up on the hill.
Well, that sounds great to me. I live up Annis Hill, so
There we go.
I wouldn't have so far to move it.
There's just a plug for the garden. it's for the community. It's for everyone to get involved, and it's still in the planning stage. So please, join in. It's for the kids and for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up actually, because I keep emphasising this point. This whole idea is about joined up thinking, and trying to create a sort of focus for everyone's efforts in a way. And what a great opportunity I would hope it might be to promote the garden and bring people there. Yeah. Hello.
Hi, just say thank you so much. It's all absolutely brilliant. We're completely
thank
behind you, as you know. Sorry, it's just a really quick question. It won't take long. I just need to know about these 3 guys here.
Okay.
Are they yours, and what are they trying to tell us?
Well, I should have mentioned those.
This one.
I thought rather than showing slides of sculptures, I could just bring some along because I wanted you to see some things I'd made. The one on your far right is called The Spectre of Brave Alonso, and he's made of porcelain and steel and copper and various other materials, based on a story within a novel from Matthew Lewis's The Monk, one of the early Gothic novels. It's a very silly and slightly misogynistic story about some chap who goes off and gets killed and gets upset that his wife or his betrothed then takes up with another chap, and so he comes and haunts them both. But anyway, I don't know why I decided to make a sculpture about that story, but I did. The chap in the middle is, in fact, these 2 are works in progress. So the one in the middle needs a body, and will have one, and some eyebrows. It's just a sort of beginning. You've got to start somewhere. And this one nearest to me is this is actually a bronze. It's not currently finished. It's pretty much just come out of the mould, and I showed you some slides of the process. So it's kind of raw bronze before it's been patinated or coloured. And I just thought if any of you were curious, you hadn't come across a bronze, well, obviously you've all seen bronzes, but maybe not one in that state, you're welcome to come and try and lift it up. It weighs about 13 kilos. And it's a head of my father, who I only met for the first time a couple of years ago. So I thought I'd make a head of him to celebrate that fact. So that's why they're there, just so you can see I make sculptures, because I'm trying to convince you to get behind my idea. But thank you for the question.
Glad I asked. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Your vision and energy is brilliant.
Thank you. There's a lady over there.
Yeah.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Didi.
Hello, Didi.
And all this is absolute music to my ears. And anyone who knows me knows that I've been banging on about getting the Bungay Festival up and more vibrant than it has been in previous years. So I love the idea of the sculpture. I love the idea of Bungay owning the story, and that helps give Bungay an identity. I've been working with others on how we can promote Bungay and get our sense of place.
Yes.
And that feeds right into that. I run the street markets, and the lady earlier asked about capacity in Bungay.
Yes.
We don't have that much. The street markets have pretty much hit their level, dictated by the amount of car parking we've got in the town. So I think that would be the answer to that. If people drove into town and found they couldn't park, they'd drive out again.
Yeah, well, Johnny touched on that earlier, didn't he?
Yeah, so that's one of the things. But I think my question now is, I think it's wonderful, but I don't want us to all go home going, oh, that was a great idea, and then just get on with our lives. It's where we go from here. We've got to do fundraising, we've got to plan the festival, we've got to agree a site, we've got to agree a name. Stuff's got to happen, and it's how we make that happen.
Yes. Well, thank you. Well, I really hope that anyone who does have an interest in what happens next will leave their contact details, because really there's a sense of having to explore the next stage and the processes. And I've been working with the town reeve, Ollie, who has been very helpful in making this happen this evening. In fact, I'd like to thank him very much. Thank you, Ollie, for your help. And so Ollie and I will be having further discussions, and we'll hopefully take on board all the comments that have come up this evening, and we will plan the next stage and inform you what's happening, and hopefully involve as many people as people who want to be involved. You can be involved in the process as it happens. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi. Can I just say, my name's Frances,
Hello,
and
Frances.
I am the representative. I'm the chair of the Tourism and Heritage Board for Bungay Town Council.
Oh, great.
Please come and talk to the council. We would
I'd love
love
to.
to be
Thank you.
involved with this, and I'd very much like to invite you to one of our meetings.
Oh,
so that you can
thank
come and
you.
give a small presentation about what you want. We have a lot of representatives of people who are in the town, who run different trusts and groups in the town. You can come and talk to them, and come and talk to the council, because we would be on board with this, and we'd love to work with you for this. Please.
Thank you so much. That's really, really wonderful news. Well, there we are. The answer to the earlier question.
I just want to say it's a really good idea.
Thank you very much. Yeah. There's one burning question at the back, or comment or thought.
More of an observation. The two sites discussed tonight for where the statue might be, if it were, as you say, in the roundabout opposite Whiteman's, two things that would help enormously is something that's rare as hen's teeth in Bungay, which is pedestrian crossings and traffic calming.
Yeah, definitely. Well, actually, just on that one note, where in areas of London where there are terrible traffic versus pedestrian issues, like outside the Natural History Museum and the Science Museum, they have piloted schemes where the road is built up to the same level as the pavement. And as far as I know, no one has yet been squashed in that experiment. So that there are lots of different ideas. I'm just throwing all of this out as an idea. I'm not pretending to have all the answers, and there's the offer of a meeting with the council. So we will move forward and discuss it, and hopefully bring as many of you as want to be on board. And there's one more burning question.
Thank you. I'm Tony. Just one more observation. People were sort of concerned about numbers of people coming in and hordes of people about the town and so on. I was involved a number of years ago in something called the Beggars' Fair in a town called Romsey in Hampshire. Now, that's a weekend music festival. And yes, we got lots of people in. The pubs made an awful lot of money. A lot of other businesses didn't. However, people wandering around the town between the various venues saw all the different businesses and what they had to offer, and then over the next few weeks and months actually came back into the town. So while there may not be the business on the day, over the following weeks and months, it was great for the town. So that's the sort of thing we should be doing in Bungay.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And I think we probably have to draw an end to things there. So again, I'd like to thank all of you for coming. I'd like to thank Ollie and Kate and Luke and Johnny for their contributions. If you've anything else you want to contribute, there is the box. Do put your email address or something on the sheet of paper if you'd like to be kept in touch. And thank you to everyone at the Fisher Theatre, and have a wonderful evening. Oh, and there's some cheese in the bar. Johnny has brought some cheese. It's there, and there's bread.
Well, thank you.
Help yourself. Have a beautiful evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stuart.